the season opened and there were some big games to react to in the NBA on Thursday night, right? So finally, Tarika, we got to see the debut of the Bucks. We got to see them and see what Dame was going to look like. And Dame time showed up. He showed up and he was great. He was excellent, And after the game, we heard from Giannis, we heard from Dame. So, earlier in the day, actually, before we throw to to what they had to say post game, earlier in the day, there was this quote that came out from Giannis. So a lot of people were talking about it. I don't know if you saw it, but Giannis said, this is Dame's team. In an interview, he did a sit down. It was him and Damian Lillard together. So I was just like, okay, you're laying it on kind of thick for me, Giannis. Some people loved it. And I get it. He's not necessarily saying it's your team and not my team, but it's we know whose team it is. We know who's the best player on the team. Dame is going to come in. He's going to be a leader on the team. That's great. I'm glad you're welcoming him. But sometimes I'm just do we really need to do all of this performative stuff? So anyway, Giannis was still cheering him on last night. Let's hear what they had to say last night.
At the end of the day, had the hot hand, and you just got to keep on feeding it. What works, you got to keep on going to what works. Obviously, it was Dame that was working at the time. That's trust, you got to build that trust. He has to know that whenever he has the hot hand down the stretch, we're going to find him, and we're going to give him the ball for him to operate, to make plays for himself, and to make plays for the team. And that's what he did tonight. That's why we were able to get the win.
Right now, it's I'm looking around like I'm the new guy, even though I've been in this league a long time. But like I said, I came here to be a part of winning, and I think I've started to settle in, just by how I've been embraced, and what the team is saying to me behind closed doors.
No, it's all kumbaya right now. Tarika, what did you think of last night's game?
So I'm happy for Dame. Dame went off, and I really love that for him. We got to see Dame time, record-setting performance, 38 points in his debut. Honestly, I feel like what we saw is what we expected when we knew that Dame and Giannis was going to play together, right? And quite honestly, I don't know, maybe this was just me, but it really did feel very intense. That game itself felt very intense. It kind of almost had a playoff feel to it. And I know Giannis kind of mentioned this after the game too. And I was like, dang, Giannis, I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking the same thing. So we could potentially be seeing this matchup later on in the year. But I think this was it was a great start for Milwaukee. They needed a strong start like this. And, they had an 18-point first half lead, right? And so I think that there were moments, and I said this because I'm going to always throw the WNBA and everything. I said this about the New York Liberty when they first became a team, where I was like, no matter how good the players are individually, it's always going to take a little bit of time for people to gel. And I got ate up when I said that about New York, because it took time for them to gel. I still say the same thing about it. Exactly, right? And so I say the same thing about this Bucks team, that even though last night there were moments where they looked incredibly accustomed to each other and familiar with each other, there are still going to be things that they're going to have to get to know each other with in doing. And I think you could see that when the 76ers started to make their comeback. There were moments in that game where you kind of saw the defense look a little confused on where they were supposed to go. And then, shout out to the Sixers, and I'll talk about them in a second. But ultimately, I think there are just moments where we saw this is still a new team. They still have to get to know each other. They still have to figure out placement where they are. But for the most part, I loved the way that this team looked with Lillard on the floor. And there was one moment in particular where Philly had two defenders on Dame, and it left Brook Lopez wide open for this three, and he drained it. And I was like, this is exactly right here why they needed Dame to be here, because essentially what this is going to do is it's going to bring more attention to Dame, where players will now have the opportunity to spread the floor more. I know Giannis just felt great having a point guard that he could trust out there. And that's not to shade Drew Holiday, but just saying that Dame is a very different kind of guard than Drew Holiday is, and he brings a different level, a different skill set than Drew Holiday did. And you could see that early on that Dame was really going to be great with just helping get the ball in Giannis's hands, really helping to spread the floor. So I really did like that for him. But I got to go over to the Sixers for a second.
That's fine. Let's do it.
Because there was no James Harden last night, right? For a myriad of reasons. There's the stories about, all of his not wanting to be there. Then there was the stories about, well, his mom was sick. And so that's why he was away from the team. But then there was the story about access and him not being able to get on the plane. Now there's a whole investigation. With all of that, no Harden for the Sixers, no problem. Because in full transparency, I came into this matchup thinking it was already going to be an L for Philadelphia. Like, it is what it is. It's just they got too much drama going on. It's a new team for, the standards of different role players, that kind of stuff. And I was pleasantly surprised to see midway through that game, I started to believe that this team could actually pull out a victory against Milwaukee.
They took control of the game at one point and got the lead. So it definitely
absolutely did. After having an 8-point lead. And then what really stood out to me, the coaching differences. The coaching difference between Doc Rivers and Nick Nurse was glaring. And I put this loss honestly on Embiid a little bit. I'm removing the fact that Giannis and Dame went off. I put this on Embiid a little bit because I felt like if it was one moment and one opportunity where he needed to go off, it would have been that fourth quarter. He had 24 points. And like I mentioned earlier, Kelly Oubre came off the bench and gave him 27. Tobias gave him 20. So they were getting production from other people. But it really made me think if Embiid had set up just a bit more later on down the stretch, this might have been an L for Milwaukee. And then you start to think, well, do we really need James Harden after all? I didn't even mention Tyrese Maxey, who is a star. Right. Like, he is a bona fide superstar in this league to me. No ifs, and buts about it. But I'm just thinking, you don't need James Harden, do you? Like after a performance like that against what could be the best team early on, like, you start to think to yourself, if I get more production like that out of my bench, if I get a bigger performance down the stretch from Embiid, do I need to deal with all of the drama that James Harden brings to this team?
No, I think the Clippers are fine trading James Harden. I just think that your boy Daryl Morey needs to be a little bit more realistic about the price that he's going to get. And James Harden certainly isn't making it easier, for anyone. So the Clippers have reportedly backed out, like they're just not interested anymore. So we've gone from their interest and just where they stand in terms of what each other wants to now they're just stepping back from trade talks, right? I mean, he's bringing a lot of drama. And so you have to imagine teams looking around the league saying, do we want to deal with this? I've always thought the answer is if you can get a consistent Tyrese Maxey, if he takes that leap, right? A lot of teams are relying on this, the Warriors being one of them. Part of their success is dependent on Jonathan Kuminga really taking that year 3 leap, right? So if Tyrese Maxey really takes that leap and he's consistent, then you don't actually probably need James Harden, And so I think the Sixers are going to be much better than maybe what some people anticipated, including myself, which is why I did have them in my top 10. But it was I still needed to, coming into the season, that is, but we needed to see what the team looked like. I knew with an MVP level player in Embiid that they had enough. They had enough to still be a good team, but we had to see it. So to me, even though it was a loss, to me, like you said, it was promising. And so we'll see what happens next.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.